Hello, Gravitrons. I'm more gravity. Let's play chess. Just finished this game about a minute or two ago, and as you can see, uh, I'm, the game was accurate, had some highlights. The break didn't come all too soon, so I'm really proud uh, of that part of this, and let's see if the gameplay makes me just as proud. Um, really starting to improve on some of my games here. All right. Now, you'll notice if you watch the timer at the bottom here, this won't unfold in the accurate time that the game was played because I'm pushing the moves to each other rather than following the exact time. But notice that those of you who have been watching or following my chess progress will notice that I am really pushing the issue of clock in this game. It's just something I'm experimenting with, and so far so good. I don't usually make my moves all that quickly, and so I thought, well, if I make myself play quickly, I can learn how to keep myself from time trouble and not be a time pressure addict. So here we go, my friends. E4 and D5, the Scandinavian defense. Uh, E takes D is the best response by white, and of course, Queen takes D. And now, very often, Knight to C3. Developing the knight with tempo is a very awesome opening in that white gets some trumps and black gets what he wants. A mostly clear chessboard and some honest tactics. White, on the other hand, has a lead in development and will probably be first to stake a claim in the center by developing a knight to f3 or by pushing pawn to d4. There's other good moves as well. You could try bishop b5. I'm not sure that works against c6 though. So let's maybe bishop to c4 makes more sense. So white has some options and good for white. Now black, like I said, there will be uh, some honest tactics. What do I mean by that? Just uh, arising naturally from the game. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I might not have stated that right, but we're going to move on with the game. Uh, H3 is a little bit slow, I would say, for this part of the game. However, cuts out any black piece from having a future on G4. This is one of these squares. There are certain squares that are very important for early tactics. G4, G5, B4, and B5. And H3 kind of prevents black from camping on C4. So can be seen as useful. A little slow and useful. I play C5, almost lickety split. 4 moves have passed, and I've taken fewer than 2 seconds, or maybe exactly 2 seconds. So I'm really trying to blitz these moves out. Same here now at 5 moves, still with 4:58 showing on the clock. And knight to c6 covers some important central squares, develops the knight. So just a solid move you want to look for in most king pawn openings. Quite a few queen pawn openings. Yeah. And then bishop to c4 are really solid opening move to develop the bishop and put some early pressure on f7. E5. Hey, we make mistakes. We move quickly. We make probably more mistakes. E5 looked good to me because it seemed like I was getting a good share of the center for not all that much danger. After knight takes e5, knight takes e5, white would be losing too much material. So um, let's take a look if I can see it for myself first. White has some sort of strong retort. I'm looking at pawn to d3 or pawn to d4, after which point the g5 square is safe enough for the knight to travel because of the protection lent by the bishop at c1, and then two pieces exerting pressure on the vulnerable f7 square. You would push d4 like it's kind of like it's a pawn sacrifice for tempo. You really have something strong on f7, then maybe push d4. If f7 is less concrete, then you would push pawn to d3. Maybe d4, because without d4, right, if we're going to push pawn to d3 here as white, then f6 would be a cool way to protect e5, and the e8 h5 diagonal is not all that bad. There are ways to block. The queen's got to go through the knight, which means the knight has to move, and then the queen has to play her move to h4, and then the block is strong. So I think f6 is at least worth protecting e5. So I would say then, going all the way back to pawn to d3, pawn to d4 hurries the issue, and then maybe white is getting to f7 on time. Let's take a look. Let's see if maybe Torch can help us out on this. Torch says d3 was an excellent move, so just that means that d4 doesn't quite do it for white, and that d3 is this strong move to keep advances from occurring in the center, and also a more long-lasting pressure against f7. d3 h6 to try to prevent the knight from adding that pressure, and maybe that's some sort of so con something. Consideration, conciliation. Conservation, consolation. I don't know. I used to know that word. I don't know that word. It's a concession. After e5, to e5, and then white plays e5, then white plays d3. h6 is a sort of a concession that black has to take time out to cover g5 to make g5 inaccessible. However, I was thinking that f6 might be a good way to do that for white. So we go d3, and then I want to see Pawn to f6. Can white force something here? It looks like it. With bishop to e3. So taking this from Torch. Or it's just weakening the e8 h5 diagonal. And like I said, I'm not all that worried about that because after a knight move and queen to h5 check, then still g6 is strong enough for black. So that's my say so. And Torch disagrees on this. I'm certainly correct. Torch, that is certainly correct between the two of us. But, yeah. Okay, anyway. Concession. That the move h6 is a slight concession by black. So bishop to e6. a3 is is a useful move to keep the knight out of b4. Again, I think maybe it's a little bit slow. Does white want to initiate trades on e6 rather than have black initiate trades on c4? Does white maybe want to target this c5 pawn and begin building pressure? If it's not a moment for an active move, then maybe white wants to play castle's kingside, get his king safe. Very often we castle when there isn't all that much great other moves to do. Castling's been available for 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4 moves. And on move number, I guess 4 in this case, you castle because the board's not incredibly active. You get a nice, safe, long-term move, introducing, in many cases, your rook to the fray. I mean, I know he goes to e1, but then he'll be soon enough to e8 or d8 and be part of the battle and the struggle. So yeah, make your castling move during I think it's called. People say make your castling move during a lull or quiet time. So I did initiate captures and recaptures. I did initiate exchange of equal valued pieces on c4. These doubled pawns I saw as a weakness, not horribly bad because b3 repairs a lot of it, but it's still for the time being, as long as before white takes time out to play b3, c4 is very weak. There's also trading queens, which is both going to place white's king in check. And depending on how white deals with it, then maybe the knight's a little bit awkward or the king can't castle anymore. That's sort of like small advantage, somewhat of a small advantage. So my opponent captured on c4, I captured on d1. We're trading queens. Capturing back with the knight is correct. And I take up a very strong position with a knight at d4, where this is bait on e5 because knight takes e5, knight takes c2 check, king moves, knight takes a1, and black will have at least the exchange to a pawn ahead of white. Most likely, though, that knight's getting out of there. So let's see this. It occurred in the game. Let's see how knight takes e5 is a bad pawn grab, and knight c2 check, king d2, get the rook, 5 points of material ahead. It's not clear that white can do anything easy to prevent the knight from escaping. I see perhaps king to c3 as a strong move, as it covers one of the escape squares. So we don't know if this knight is going to make it or not. Torch likes king c3. You can see here on the mini map or the mini board. And then I'm pretty much, as black, ignoring any immediate attempts to allow my knight to escape. So I think this is like strongly suggesting that this knight will be captured, and it might not be easy to do so. My opponent my opponent developed his knight to c3. I was glad to see. I am also to say that I'm critical of this move from an analysis standpoint. As a competitor, I was okay with it, at least at the time. And I played knight to b3 check, where now I'm guaranteed to pick up equal material exchanges on an equal. I'm guaranteed to pick up an equal material exchange on c1. This bishop can't go anywhere, plus the king is in check. So when the king slides over, I'm going to allow this knight to be remembered as the same knight that picked up a rook and a bishop, and did maybe he pick up a pawn on c2? I don't think so. So that knight is in the is in my good graces. Now black is ahead by a full rook, and there's no clear way for white to gain some of that material back. Sort of move forward here. Is that even allowing for knight takes f7 isn't a big deal for black, because if knight takes f7, or even rook takes e8, and king takes e8, and the f7 square's protected by the king, but also, yeah, knight takes f7 immediately just loses the rook on e1 outright. This is a better move. Rook to d1, pinning my bishop. So some slight inaccuracies here on my part, but then the great move, king to c6, giving up the exchange for iron. It is a great move. It's the type of move I really wasn't sure if I should do that or not, because the king's venturing out a little bit far. Might not be justifiable materially. We exchange on d8, so black has just given back material both at f7 and at d8. That's why I lead by 2 points of material instead of 5. I like this king c6 here. King c6, because it's a great move, but for reasons outside of chess. This is a brilliant move and a brilliant analysis. This is not normally how computers would rate this. I'm giving up the exchange. I don't know that I'm getting quite that much back for that in terms of chess, but maybe it was a way to douse a fire before it became a conflagration, a larger fire. So I'm really impressed by that. That's some serious analysis by Torch 4. Alright, so anyhow, with a rook on e1 and a rook on e8, the e file shows opposing rooks. If my opponent wants to hang on to his rook, he has to go to either one of these files that would just be silly, as it's blocked by his own pieces, or the d file. He will either travel to d1 or exchange on e8. Neither one is great. Rook d1 is a little better to keep the piece on the board. Is that what my opponent played? Yes. So I didn't see much danger or counterplay that white could offer here. So I played what might look like a slow move, pawn to a6. I just want to really be sure that this knight doesn't get here and entrenched on an outpost on b5. Pushing forward, threatening either You give me one of those pawns back. You give me a pawn of material, or you have to exchange equal value on e4. It's just this is a threat. You don't normally see. We might not normally consider this a threat with knight being at e4 here. This is a threat. I'm threatening, saying I'm either gonna go ahead, a point of material on top of how far ahead I already am, or you're gonna have to trade off one of the very few pieces you have left. I'm saying this to my opponent by chess play. It's the type of threat. When I have more material, this is how I play. When, just in general, this is one of the things to do. Use this, but don't, when you do this, know that this is a threat. Knight takes e4, rook takes e4. And then it's just not much. My opponent abandons the game here. So, what a grand game. A lot of things. I am extremely impressed by Torch's mark of my 20th move. This is brilliance within the analysis as well as the move. I'm very, very impressed. Alright, so we had this position with white to move. I'm gonna close this out against computer, and that's gonna be it for this broadcasting session. See where white chooses to move. Probably B3. Yeah. Now I'm using the threat of exchanging here with white to move. I'm using the threat of exchanging pieces simultaneously with gathering another pawn. This is a strong endgame theme. The pieces are exchanged here, and this won't take all that much. This won't be all that difficult. Okay. All right. All right. So great game. Great game. My opponent played well. I played well. Great game. All right. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you, Gravitrons. I'm More Gravity. Have a great night.